is Gary Montgomery. And Gary, what is the significance of today's race?
Well, it is the crown jewel of dirt modified stock car racing. 27 years into running. It's a very, very big deal.
See you again. We've come a long way from where we began.
This is what we call the pain lane here in Canandaigua, way up on top where nobody dares to go, but that's the lane that has made Payne famous at this racetrack. And you see him tricycling a little bit there. He goes up over the berm on the back straightaway. He is flying, but he's not flying fast enough, Doug, because the barefoot wonder, the master of going faster, Bob McCready, has come from deep in the pack to take over position number 5 now.
That it wouldn't last, had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place.
Now, there he goes to the inside of the water wagon. Johnny Moravec, the gas man, stays up on top. Kamara's down on the bottom. The Pulte, Vermont driver, hugging the bottom of the racetrack.
Gonna be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend.
It's a great clay surface, wide back straightaway, spacious corners, and when he backs it into 3 without lifting, it's a thing of beauty. Combination of handling, motor, and talent. He's got all 3.
We began.
No, we started.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Tell you.
When I see you again.
$9,000 Dan, winner here last year. He led every lap, started on the pole, led the entire last year was 95 laps. He led them all. There we see Timmy Fuller taking over the number 4 spot as he trucks down to the bottom of the racetrack. But the leaders are under a blanket. Alan Johnson, AJ Slideways, down on the bottom, and he'll take the lead as Eggs at turn number 4. Ron Hutter, stand up and take a bow. Brand new Hutter power plant for the Taylor Motorsports team, and it is working beautifully for Doug Hoffman. Hutter out of Chardon, Ohio, builds some of the most powerful engines in all of motorsports, and right now, one of those engines is under the hood of car number 1.
How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
They shuffle through 1 and 2. Canada Joe and his Maple Leaf Special, the Plastic Auto Recyclers, Stakeout Restaurant, Troyer car leads. Here comes Hearn on the bottom of the racetrack. The Budweiser Olsen, Theo car charges to the inside. He'll lead lap number 1. Track.
Yes, Doug, it is. It's a 1/3 mile, and it's a Sunday night racetrack, and that's what makes it especially special, because there's a lot of Friday night places, a lot of Saturday night places, but only one Sunday night place. So they all get together here on a weekly basis.
Day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Race fans, it's time to throw it up on the cushion and get dirty. Coming to you live from the Finger Lakes and Southern Tier, it's time for Turn 5 Live. Now, your hosts of Turn 5 Live, Steve Ovens, Clint Miller, and Brad Ovens.
Well, race fans, as you hear in the opening, we're here tonight to pay tribute to our friend and now fallen friend, Gary Montgomery, who fell to his courageous battle with cancer here this past Wednesday evening, ironically his 74th birthday. And Gary, obviously a great supporter to motorsports and a great friend to a lot of folks in the racing community. We lost Gary this past Wednesday, and again, just a courageous battle with cancer. Had been fighting that for well over a year, and this fall, things really took a turn for the worse, and Gary really fought through his last days, and we're here tonight to help share memories, share stories, and hopefully bring a smile to some faces as we look back on the career and the life that was so well served by Gary Montgomery. Obviously, our thoughts, prayers, and condolences are being sent out to his wife Karen, who they were born on the same day. If you want to talk about a couple that was meant to be together. That was Gary and Karen Montgomery, without a doubt. Both of them born in Olean, New York. And then, of course, moving, actually several moves, not only from around the Rochester area, spent some time in Mexico as well, and then, of course, moving to their home on Cuca Lake, where we've gotten to know them so well over the years. But Gary Montgomery, what a guy. What more can you really say? A husband, a father, a grandfather, a friend, a mentor, and one hell of a race announcer. He is going to be sorely, sorely missed. We have got an all-star cast at the round table for you tonight. We're going to hear from Doug Elkins, Shane Andrews, Paul Szmal, Mel Thomas, and much, much more here on our Gary Montgomery tribute episode here tonight on Turn 5 Live. We started out this whole deal now just over 3 years ago, approaching year number 4 here. And, Gary Montgomery was one of the first, if not the very first person who actually came out and did an in-person interview with us in the old studio on Ferguson Corners Road. And, as we're talking about memories of Gary and things that we're going to miss and we're going to remember, I think for me, that's probably one of the things that'll come to mind is, he helped me as a mentor, as an announcer and a media staff person, but, he come out, Gary was one of the first guys to really help us get going with our whole program here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, Steve, I had forgot about that. I knew we've had him on the show, but I did forget that he was the first line of dressing that came into the Chop studio.
Yeah, absolutely. We could, as we approach this show here for the last almost a week, we could literally go on for days of memories of Gary and things that, positive memories that we could look back on. And Clint, talking to you here for the last couple of days, I know there's just certain things that will always stick out. I mean, we all have great memories, but what are some of the things that, as you've thought about this week, that have stuck out to you?
Well, probably the first thing that I ever remember, Gary Montgomery, the name and the persona, his voice is kind of one of a kind. It's very deep. It's very girthy, and when you hear him, I was at Canandaigua one night, and one of his old, his calls to when the big block modifieds are coming out of 4 for the green flag is, by the grace of God and 800 horsepower, and I think that was the first time, and that was years ago. I can't even remember, exactly what year that was. They all blend together now, but I remember that, and that stuck with me. I can remember playing my Matchbox cars, and that was. That was what I would say every time. He was a announcer, promoter at Black Rock Speedway when my stepdad Sam Kelly and Lynn Huff owned it, and seeing him come around the pits, with his pad and paper, talking to all the different drivers, was just something. Not taking anything away from the other announcers that have graced the years. Mel Thomas is awesome, but he knew everybody personally, and just like your article said, Steve, he knew their kids, he knew their job. That sticks out to me. The BRP Can-Am series, every time you go up to draw, it's usually his wife and Sharon Schuyler or one of the Wonderlings and Sharon, but he's always around the corner. You could always hear him, and he stuck with that series. And then after that was over with, probably what my best memories are of him, Steve, is when I worked at Radio Shack in Penn Yan. When he found out that I worked there, I would see him, once or twice a month at least. He'd always come in and we'd talk racing, and he'd ask how my family was doing. He asked how my dad was, and Sometimes it got into his, the politics that he was into, but very rarely did that come up. That it was always something that we talked about. It was something that we had in common was racing and being a part of our lives, for all of our lives. And that was just really cool to sit there and bench race with him at Radio Shack for a half hour, 45 minutes, and just reminisce about everything, and it's just, where things were headed, where it was going. He was the first one. Remember, he was the first one to don't drink the crate Kool-Aid.
Yes. Oh, yes. Not drinking the crate Kool-Aid, I remember that so vividly in that interview. And actually, Clint, later on in this program, we're going to replay pieces of that interview from when Gary first visited the Casa de Pork Chop Studios, and I worked real hard this weekend trying to cut up a bunch of different Gary interviews, whether it was here on our program or if it was something that Doug Elkins at Doug's Dirt Diary was so gracious to loan us for the program tonight. That's the thing about Gary is, one of the things was he had a nickname for everybody. He knew everybody like the back of his hand, and the way he was able to reproduce that information at just the right time and at just the right, level and octave in his voice. That stuff was powerful. I mean, I remember watching Rush Hour as a young kid. And that was appointment television. And,
yes.
As a young kid, appointment television for young kids, and Clint, your young kids, I'm sure you'll relate to this. A lot of your young kids, they know exactly what time their favorite cartoon comes on or their favorite TV show. But for guys like us, when we knew when Rush Hour was on. We had the VHS tape set. Ready to go.
Yes. Yep.
And it was the kind of production that Dirt Motorsports and Doug Logan and Gary Montgomery and Paul Szmal put together. It was just powerful stuff. And now we're going to look back on it and have all those great memories, and we're just going to miss Gary so dearly. And Clint, you brought up an interesting point. Gary was from our hometown.
Yep.
And I'll never forget the day that I found out, or I'm sure that maybe my parents had mentioned it when we used to watch Rush Hour, but it wasn't until later in life that I realized this guy lives on Cuca Lake. Like, that's where we live. Like, this guy who was an announcing and a broadcast, an idol to so many of us, he lived right in our hometown. And getting that personal experience, and I don't know, I think there was just that extra level. It's like when we talk about Lance Young, or when we talk about any of the guys that got their start at Black Rock and now Outlaw Speedway, Clint, you just have that extra sense of pride. Like, he was really one of us. He was a PY guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that's it. Just adds a little bit of. I'm going to use the word heroism. Because he was who we looked up to, we looked forward to it, and he was right in our backyard. So he was definitely somebody that we could look up to, knowing that we wanted either to be involved in racing somehow. We knew, hey, this guy, I know Gary Montgomery. Hey, you could tell your friends. Gary Montgomery, he used to be on the TV show that we used to watch every Saturday, and he's right here from our hometown. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. And you talk about being at the races with the BRP late model tour and everything. I mean, Karen was not far behind. Wherever you found Gary, you found Karen. And I think that was part of that, however you want to describe it. That you just liked this guy, you liked Gary and Karen that much more. Here's an interesting fact that I'm not sure a lot of people knew, Clint. Gary and Karen were born on the same day.
No, I did not know that.
They shared the same birthday. They were born in the same hospital in Wellsville, New York, in Olean, New York. I mean, a couple that was absolutely meant to be together, without a doubt. And that shined through every year that we saw them out at the racetracks or at the trade shows. I mean, wherever you saw Gary, you saw Karen, and that's something that I'm going to take with me for sure.
Yeah, and that's something that we always preach, Steve, and we preached it right from day one. Racing is a family. Yeah. And he was able to do what he loved with the woman that he loved. And she was right there by his side, just like you said. And that was the other thing about Gary, Steve, is he cared about everybody.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't matter if you were Jeremy Wonderling or if you were Steve Kent. Maybe he cared too much at times, but he truly did care about everybody. I never heard him say a real honest-to-goodness bad word. He may have some things to say that he maybe didn't agree with, but I never heard him talk down or bad about a person.
No, and that's something that in talking with Shane Andrews, who's going to be on the program with us later tonight, that was the one thing, and actually I think it was even Paul Szmal that mentioned this, that was the thing that set Gary apart from so many others, is, you could be on lap 14 of a race and you're under your 13th caution of the event. And it's so easy in those situations to be frustrated and to make comment or start to head down that negativity trail. Not Gary Montgomery. The guy had so much respect. He was such a classy guy. And again, it didn't matter what division you raced in. You could race big block modifieds or you could race 4 cylinders. This guy did not discriminate when it came to getting to know the racers that he was going to talk about. And you want to talk about a guy who promoted each and every racer that he could in his own way. Couldn't find a better guy.
No, you're absolutely right, Steve.
So we're going to step aside here. Clint, any other thoughts on Gary that you have for us on our Gary Montgomery tribute tonight?
I don't, Steve. I feel honored that I got to know him and I got to meet him, and I know my life was better for it. And thank you, Gary, for everything you've done, and Godspeed, my friend.
No doubt about it. When we talk about the reasons why we even got this program off the ground, you talk about guys like Doug Madison, you talk about guys like Jack Christensen, Al Bishop, and you talk about guys like Gary Montgomery. It's guys like Gary that is why we got this show started, why we wanted to tell these stories, and he is going to be sorely missed. A great friend, a great mentor, and a hell of a guy. Gary Montgomery passing away this past week at age 74. We're going to step aside here. When we come back, Clint, we're going to go to that interview. That first time he came out to the Casa de Pork Chop Studios, I believe he said it was a real luxurious studio. But
something like that.
We're gonna go back and we're gonna relive it. He said his favorite part was it's close enough to home. So we're gonna go back and relive that great memory back in 2013 or 2014. Our first sit down with Gary Montgomery on Turn 5. You're listening to Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
Max Dairy Bar is a proud supporter of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Opened in 1974, Max Dairy Bar has been a Penn Yan, Cayuga Lake, and Yates County staple, serving the best Hershey's hard ice cream. They also have soft serve ice cream, their weekly yogurt special, sorbet flavors, gluten-free options, frozen Greek yogurt, and non-dairy lemon ice. Don't forget about their tricky 18-hole putt-putt course that will test your skills to see if you have what it takes to be a champion. Max Dairy Bar and Mini Golf, located on State Route 14A, just south of the village of Penn Yan, right on the way to Black Rock Speedway on Friday nights. Visit them online at www.maxdairybar.com or Max Dairy Bar on Facebook and Twitter. Stop by Max Dairy Bar and tell them Turn 5 Live sent you.
We're growing like crazy and need account reps who know their way around agencies, the internet, and social media. Got connections? Or do you know how to get to the decision makers? Are you fearless? We need you. Internet radio, or as we call it, wireless mobile radio, is rapidly becoming the place to be with almost limitless income potential. So contact us to get involved with the fastest growing professionally produced group of internet radio stations in the world. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444. Or you can email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ, photo booth, and uplighting company of Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network. Stuart Ovens and his staff at Creekside Entertainment are professional and experienced with events of any type. Creekside Entertainment specializes in wedding packages that are affordable and fun, and they are ready to serve you with the most up-to-date music and karaoke selection. If you can sing it in the shower, you can come out and sing it with Creekside Entertainment. And don't forget about the Creekside Entertainment photo booth and uplighting service that will transform your wedding or party into an event the family will be talking about for years. Trust the entertainment company that racers trust. Call Stu at area code 315-481-9700 or visit them online at creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. Creekside Entertainment, division sponsor of the Black Rock Bandits in 2015.
Hi, race fans. This is Adam Del Grosso, and you're listening to Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network.
Welcome back, race fans, to Turn 5 Live here on the Performance Motorsports Network. Our Gary Montgomery tribute episode here tonight on PMN as we look back on the life and times of our good friend Gary Montgomery, who passed away this past week at age 74. Couple of interviews we wanted to share with the listeners tonight if you haven't had a chance to hear them before. We're first going to start with Gary's very first interview with Turn 5 Live, and he just so happened to do it by making a personal visit to the Casa de Pork Chop Studios back when our studio was located in Penn just a couple miles up the road, for Gary to come out and make a personal appearance. One of the first guests we ever had live in studio. And if that didn't tell you what kind of a classy guy Gary Montgomery was, I don't know what would. We could have done that interview right over the phone, as we did many of our interviews back at that time, back in 2013 when the program first got launched. But Gary Montgomery, no, he wasn't a phone interview kind of guy. He was going to come out and do a face-to-face interview to tell us all about the BRP Can-Am Late Model Series that was coming back in 2014 after rumors that the series might be going away. So we're going to play that first for you. Then immediately following that interview, we'll have an interview with Doug Elkins with Gary Montgomery, as Gary shared his memories of local racing friend Doug Madison, who passed away back in 2009. So first we'll have our interview with Gary Montgomery from 2013 at the Casa de Pork Chop Studios, and we'll follow it up by his April 2009 interview with Doug Elkins talking about the recently passed Doug Madison.
Live guest in studio, Clint, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I can't wait.
We know that the gentleman over here to our left has probably got some news that some folks will want to hear about, and he decided to come out to the studio here at the Casa de Pork Chop Studios and give it to us, and that is Gary Montgomery. Gary, thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and what a facility you've got. Outstanding.
Hey, now.
You know, it's a little more classier than the facility we were at last week. We were out at the bar last week.
It's very classy, and it's in my neighborhood, so what do you want? What more could you want?
That's perfect.
Nice, quiet neighborhood most of the time. We were just talking about something else that had happened, but most of the time it's pretty quiet.
Yeah, good.
So I was writing down some notes today, and I said, yeah, I'm going to throw my notes out the window because we could sit here and talk all night about racing. And had a chance to sit down with you a few weeks back for an article that's coming out here in the next week or so, talking about your history in racing. Been around racing, racetracks for a long time. Between first being a race fan to then being an announcer at Spencer and then general manager of Canandaigua and promoter of BlackRock and now series director for the BRP Can-Am late models.
Don't forget Little Valley.
And when the time with Little Valley, exactly. What's the next chapter got written for you?
I don't know if there's a next chapter written, but this BRP Can-Am deal is probably going to be what I'll do for the rest of my life, however long that is. And that's the news. When I left the end of the year this year, 2013, we're still listed 2013 for another couple of days, I wasn't exactly sure what we were going to do. I kept telling everybody it was going to have to change, that being the BRP Can-Am series. Our numbers were down for the first time basically in the history of the series. This was our 11th year, and our average car count for the tour events was 24, which was down a tad from the year before, and down several from the years before that. So we're on a trend like the rest of motorsports, and that's not a trend that any of us like. I shouldn't say all of motorsports, but a lot of area local motorsports.
Sure.
And so the change is strictly in the way we will run the points program. These guys all race for points. Money doesn't seem to be a big factor since there's not a lot of money anyway. But we've always run with our emphasis on the tour events with home track bonus points added in as a factor. We didn't do that the first couple of years, but we've been doing it since, I don't know, probably 2005 or something or other. For 2014, a total shift. And really all I do is copy what other people do. I'm copying Dirt Car and what they're doing with their home track and series points programs. So at the end of the regular racing season, say to be determined, but roughly Labor Day is basically when most tracks conclude their points racing. And so we'll take the tracks that are member tracks, and right now that appears to be Raceway 5 in Batavia, Woodhall in Woodhall, New York, and Freedom Speedway in downtown Freedom, New York, will be the member tracks. And so at some assigned date, again, we'll all agree on that before it happens, but roughly in September, we'll take the point standings from each of those three tracks. Each of the champions will receive 1,000 points. Second place will receive 980 points, and then a 10-point decrement on down the line for a while. And then throw in the series tour event points on top of that. So we theoretically, and we will have three guys all entering with the same number of points of the three. If there are three different champions at those tracks, now it's possible that somebody would win it. Freedom could double up with either Raceway 5 or Woodhull, but since Freedom will be a Friday night track, the other two are Saturday night tracks. So anyway, we'll have. And with that shorted decrement between the positions, theoretically the top 10, 12 guys all have an equal shot for the series championship. And so that's the change. So the focus is on home track points as opposed to tour event points, but both will be factored in.
Sure.
And the best news is I've shared this change of strategy with all my major marketing partners, and all three have endorsed it 100%, and so it will be the BRP, Bicknell Racing Products Can-Am Series again in 2014.
Great news.
That's good news.
ISKI is back as for our ISKI Championship program, and Elias Tire, the distributor for American Racer Tires, is back as well. Those are our three major people that come up with dollars. So we'll have about $15,000 in cash to share among the top point earners, as we have for the past several years, and about that amount of money in good product as well. So,
cool.
See something in the neighborhood of a $30,000 point fund for what I envision to be about 10 tour events.
Okay.
That's to be determined, but it'll be about that number, as opposed to what I did in 2013. We scheduled 19 events.
Okay.
We only completed 16 of them because of rain, but
sure.
And some of the other things changed around a little bit. But it's just, the world has changed, and travel is a problem for everybody. Problem in that it's expensive. So we'll have our tour events. Little Valley will be, every time they're racing, we'll have an event at Little Valley.
Okay.
That's 5 of those. Have one little problem with one date there, but the cars will be there regardless, whether it's a tour event or not.
Okay.
And I have one date for each of Raceway 5 and Woodhull, but we're working on a second for each of those, and possibly even a third for Woodhull. And then we're going to conclude the series with Brett Deo at his short track Super Nationals at I-88.
That's awesome.
In October. We were invited to do that, and that was really a pretty big deal. When Brett asked if we would do that, at that point I wasn't. The day he asked me, I wasn't even sure what I was going to do with the series for 2014. But that helped me make up my mind, and I've been thinking about this change of focus a little bit anyway. I just needed to do something different, not drastically different. The technical rules will be the same and so forth, but that's a change, and so we'll crown our champion at the short track super. Great title for that event.
Oh yeah.
And I-88 Speedway. I had never been there until this year. We did run a race there this year.
Okay.
Great facility, beautiful facility.
That's what I've heard.
A little bit out of the way, but it's right off of the expressway off of I-88,
Yep.
Interstate 88, which is right off of Interstate 86, and so it's not hard to get to. And it's a beautiful, covered old fairgrounds grandstand deal in a pretty valley. It's a nice place, and
it sounds like that's going to be a great place to have the Super Nationals. They got a lot of camping space. They've already have started to sell campsites for that weekend. A lot of people have got that circled already.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. At 5 Mile Point, they would get almost 80 modifieds, and that at I-88, which was the original home track of the Super Nationals, if I'm correct.
That's right.
You can't think it's going to be any less.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a little bit of controversy about all of this, as you're hinting at, between I-80. There are 3 major events going on that weekend. The big stuff going on at Syracuse on the mile, and then Andrew Harpel is going to run a program at 5 Mile Point the same weekend. Yeah. There are probably enough cars to go around to make it something good for everybody. Too bad the fans will have to make a choice, but as it was described to me, and it made perfect sense, there just was no more room to grow the event at 5 Mile Point. They just didn't have enough room for, you talked about campers, kids, the whole 9 yards. So Brett, I wasn't involved in that decision at all, but
Sure.
they decided to go
Lucky
there.
you.
Well, to go there, but I think they're all right with, I don't know, we're not involved in
right.
details of how that's playing out, but But I made sure that it was all right with all my marketing partners.
Sure.
Of course, my drivers don't care; it's not an issue there. So,
Right.
So we're looking forward to that. So, so the big news is we'll be back, changing the focus to home track bonus point as opposed to the tour events with a manageable number of tour events. Again, I'm thinking probably 10, maybe as many as 12, but probably more like 10. And a $30,000 point fund again, and concluding the deal at I-88. So we're looking forward to a great year.
In a rather short amount of time, it's come from, I'm not sure if we're going to exist next year, to maybe change rules to try and be comparable to the crate late models, to now we're back going to have at least a 10 race schedule. I know that's got to be a lot of strenuous thought that goes into that thought process and trying to get everything arranged. And
there is, and was and is. And you and I had talked about this when we met a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
The formula that we have for these cars is really good,
Mm-hmm.
I think. But there are a lot of guys drinking crate Kool-Aid, and that has really hurt my program. And we've lost some good competitors to the crate late model program, and other young guys that were coming along that opted to go that route as opposed to the BRP cars. We lost those as well. No, we never had them, but we would gain them.
Yeah, they skipped right over.
So our rookie class this year we had 2 rookies. Ray Bliss, who's not exactly a rookie, but he qualified and Jay McConnell were the 2 that were the primary contenders for rookie. So when you're down to 2 rookie, and that's fine that they're racing experience is what it is, because they've met my rules for rookie, but there were other young true rookies coming out from street stocks or maybe from nothing that went to the crate route. So So a thought that I have is to marry the crate late models and the BRP cars, but we've tried that a couple of times. We tried it once at Canandaigua, and the results were what we expected them to be. The real late models just whomped us, and twice at Black Rock, the same thing. So the cars are just not comparable enough. Now, what my dream is, and it still is, although it won't happen in 2014, is that we would put our open engines, and have to define open, quotes around it, but our 360 cast iron engines in real late models as a crate engine in a real late model or a super late. The chassis are all the same. Now, they're expensive, they break, but the guys love them, and there are hundreds of them out there. This year, 2013, we had 55 cars race with the BRP series. That's all we had. A few years ago, we had 100. Now, the good news is most of those 100 cars are still around. They're just sitting someplace in the garage or in the weeds or whatever. And if we can bring a few more of those back, again with this somewhat abbreviated schedule, and keep the 55 that we had, there's nothing wrong with 55 cars. And an average of 24, there are a lot of organizations that would die for that.
Right. I mean, that's a full show.
That's a full show.
That's a full show.
And it's a quality show, or at least I think it is. But a little stale, and we needed to make some change. And so we're going to try change it for.
Yeah.
And this will be the 12th year of the series.
Well, I don't think anybody can knock that. Change is not necessarily a bad thing, and oftentimes is a good thing.
Gary Montgomery, of course, was the voice of Canandaigua Speedway, and of course worked on the Rush Hour on Dirt shows, did a lot of great work over the years, and he joins me right now from his home on the northwestern shore of Keuka Lake. Gary Montgomery with me today, and of course he will be at the services today. Weldon Funeral Home, calling hours are from 4 to 6. The service will take place 6 to 7 tonight, with a reception immediately following afterwards at the Elk Lodge at 133 Main Street in Penn Yan. Gary Montgomery, how are we doing today, sir?
Well, I'm just fine, other than we have, as you said, this sad occasion today, but we're going to celebrate the life of this great guy, and we're going to try to do it in style later on today.
And I was noticing on some of your notes here that you're going to have a long neck afterwards at the Elk Lodge in Penn Yan and remember Doug, huh?
Yeah, that was his request. He called, and actually his daughter called me almost 2 weeks ago and asked me to speak at his funeral, and I said, well, there's not going to be any funeral for a while, and well, she said there would be, and so I said, well, I'll be right over. And so I went and talked to Doug for about a half hour or so, and we talked about just a few things. He wasn't feeling all that great, but one thing he said at the end is he wanted to make sure we all got together and drink, something about drinking out of a long neck bottle. And I learned later a lot more about that, but that was his request.
Yeah, the long necks, by the way, for you guys who don't know, that's what you get at the bar. So the long necks, you can't get those in the stores. How recently did you see Doug, Gary?
I saw him on Saturday the 12th, or Saturday the 11th, and he died on Wednesday the 15th. So.
Wow. Tell me a little about him, because I coming to Canandaigua and working with you, I heard a lot about this guy over the years. Tell me a little about Doug and his racing career.
Well, Doug was 57 years old and just an outstanding ambassador for auto racing. And he was, first and foremost, I view him as a race fan, but he was luckier than most of us in that he actually got to live that dream by buckling up in a race car and competing. And he did it at the highest level at some really outstanding racetracks, including Canandaigua. Of course, that's where you and I, and that's where I actually met Doug.
That was where, okay.
And I don't remember the year, but it was probably in the mid-'70s, late '70s, sometime or other along there, and then have continued to be friends with him, because once you got to know him, you would always be a friend of his. And then it turned out that I moved to this area and now just live about 10 miles from where Doug does, or did, and his family does. So, and I would see him. He's a fisherman. He was a fisherman, and he would be here at the lake fishing, and as I was out walking my dog, we'd stumble onto one another and chat about fishing. I didn't know anything about fishing, but he did, and he loved that. But our common bond was auto racing, and he just loved it, and just an all-around good guy. His racing career was, most people that are listening to this program will recognize him as a modified driver, which is big block modified driver, which of course he was. People won't remember that he actually raced a modified at Reading, and that was his favorite track. And he also raced on the mile at Syracuse, and all the tracks that you'd expect a big block modified to race at. He was there once or twice, and Wasn't a big winner. That was, in fact, as far as I can determine, he only won 2 feature races in his entire career, and I don't even know the whole length of the career. But it started in the very early 70s after he got out of the Army, and continued until probably, I'm guessing, 5-7 years ago. So it was a long career, and but not marked with a whole lot of wins, and therefore people didn't know him in that capacity. But if you got to know him as a man, you loved him. He was just a great guy, and boy, did he love racing.
And he and Jack Christensen, they worked together at the Dresden Power Plant, right?
That's right. That's where they met. That was kind of by accident. The accident is that they both were working there, but as they working together, they determined that they both had a love of racing, and as a matter of fact, both had a love of Reading Fairgrounds. And even though they lived, must be 5 hours away, they would make many trips down there. And their heroes were Dick Tobias and Kenny Brightbill. And people may remember Doug's cars, sometimes, almost always numbered 91, and that came from the reverse of Brightbill's number 19.
Oh.
And as a matter of fact, many of his early race cars were hand-me-downs from Brightbill. And the day that I talked to Doug, he had talked with Brightbill just a few hours before I got there. And so they maintained that relationship throughout all those years. And what Doug just really loved was sliding around the big wide tracks. And so I am sure that his racing at Reading was probably, well, not the highlight of his career, but one of the highlights of his career, and maybe even the highlight. But he raced on the mile at Syracuse. That wouldn't have been his favorite thing to do, and one of his least favorite things to do, I suspect, was to drive a car with fenders, but he did that very late in his career. He hopped in what we now call a 360 late model at Black Rock and ran with very limited success. And I'm sure he didn't like it, but he did it. His real love was sprint cars, and fortunately for him, he did get to race a sprint car at the very end of his career. It was not a high-dollar operation, and it simply didn't work, and he walked away from his racing career without ever having won. And his goal at probably, I'm guessing he was close to 50 years old, he wanted to be the ESS Rookie of the Year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but that didn't work. And but anyway, he got to do it all, and for that he was happy, and we were all richer that we got to see him and talk to him about it.
And he got to race at some of the premier tracks, Lincoln, Port Royal, Sealands Grove, Williams Grove. I mean, if you're a sprint car guy, those are the places you want to race at.
Yeah, I don't think he actually raced it, though. But he did race at Reading. But the others, he became a big spectator, and he would travel to those tracks. And because he loved the heavy clay, and those tracks are famous for that, and he loves sprint cars, and of course that's why they run them.
Where did he race the tractors? What were they doing? That was just fooling around or something?
Yeah, it's actually his first racing experiences, he told me, were racing a tractor around the family farm, which is right here in Penn Yan. He actually drove his first stock car race when he was a senior in high school, and he drove his car, his down 14A, which is the main route between Penn Yan and Dundee, to race at.
We lost Gary just for a second there. We'll get him right back. He's having some power problems out at Keuka Lake, but we'll get him right back here in just a second, so hold on. Now Gary has switched back over to the old-fashioned rotary phone, so if the power goes out now, we should be okay with Gary. Now, when we left off, we were talking about the old trip down 14A from Penn Yan to Dundee.
Yes, in the car that he drove to high school, he took it off and raced it at Dundee in what they then called the modern class. And I guess that was the standard norm, or pretty much the norm at that time. You could street stock racing in the truest sense. So that was. So he legally drove it down the road, raced it, and then drove it home, and all that was legal, and that was his first experience racing a car. And that just happened just during his senior year in high school, and then immediately after high school, then he went off to college and didn't race again for a number of years.
Yeah, he was in the Army after that, too, so he was out of racing for quite some time. Wasn't he, about 6 years, something like that?
Well, I don't know exactly, but 4 or 5 or 6. He didn't spend a whole lot of time in college, so that shortened up the total elapsed time in the break there. So.
Gotcha. But in 1975, it was Doug and Pee Wee Walton getting together, huh?
Right. And that's where most of your listeners will remember Doug and Pee Wee Walton's Baby Blue number 91. There were a variety of cars, but the most famous ones, of course, were light blue, and they were numbered 91, and that was Doug's trademark number, again, from the Brightbill thing that we talked about earlier. But that's what he was driving when he won his only dirt sanctioned feature race that happened to be at Blackwood. I think they called it Dundee Raceway Park then, but he won that in 1978, I believe. And according to Tom Skabinski and Gary Spade, the only other win that they have recorded for him came in 1975 at Canandaigua, but that was before the Pee Wee Light Blues number 91. So that was in a white number X97 or 97X, one or the other.
And that was the pre-Glenn Donnelly years, right, Gary? That was way back, right?
Yeah. I think Glenn took. Yeah, that was 75, and I think Glenn took over Canandaigua in 77. I think so. Yeah.
And he was also one of the drivers for Tom and Kim Ewing. I didn't realize he was in the number 34 car too for a season, huh?
Oh yeah, I one time had a list of all the drivers that they'd had in their cars, and Doug was one of them. But it was a very long list, and yeah, he did that just while he and Pee Wee were in the process of building their first brand new car. They bought a new Kneisel, and as they were piecing together the parts and making it race ready, it took them all summer because they did all this on a very, very limited budget. And so when that happened, Ewing's needed a driver, and who better than nice guy Doug Madison?
Now, notice that when you talked about him getting in the Camaro, you used the term "forced himself into." Was it his size? He was just tough to squeeze in that thing, or he's a big guy, right?
He was a big guy, and and this is what you're reading is a tribute that I'm going to read tomorrow at the funeral, and I got a lot of good stuff in there, which I don't want to divulge here tonight.
Okay, all right, I won't give you too much more.
But yeah, he was a big guy. But the bigger problem, I think, and I don't want to make a big deal out of that big guy because he's no bigger than you, or you and I are bigger.
Well, we're big guys, okay,
right.
Yeah.
We're bigger. But he just loves sprint cars and stock cars, and therefore the fact of driving a car with fenders on it, I'm sure that was not something he really wanted to do. But he did it because the guys that owned it were his buddies Al Bishop and Jack Christensen, and they had the car. I'm not sure who they built it for, but they did have Doug drive it, and they were in this for fun. I'm sure they had some fun with it, but they didn't win with it. But
When was his last time in a car?
I honestly don't know. I don't know when it was. I know it was in a sprint car at Black Rock, as a matter of fact. So his first and last actual race in a car were at Black Rock, the street stock that we talked about back in 1969, and then whenever it was. And I really should know that, and I don't. I'm going to say the early 90s when he was in Bob Hemingway's sprint car. So that was his last trip.
Very good, very good. Now, all this is happening today, and so for all you folks looking for the information, again, calling hours today from 4 to 6 at the Weldon Funeral Home. That's at 102 East Main Street in Penn Yan, and the service is immediately following from 6 to 7. But those of you who, if you can't make it to the other one, make sure you make it at least to the Elks Lodge at 133 Main Street in Penn Yan. And I guess we have to have a Miller High Life is what we have to drink, right, Gary?
That's right, out of a long neck bottle, and that was because he was a big fan of, I guess he was a fan of long neck bottles for whatever reason, but and he didn't even drink Coke out of a can. He had to have it out of a bottle.
Oh, really?
Well, that's the story. And I asked about the Miller High Life connection, and nobody seemed to know the answer to that, other than that we were piecing together the fact that Miller Brewing was involved. It was and is involved in racing, and then as far as Doug was concerned, everybody ought to have a high life. So that's as far as I can determine the reason for the Miller High Life.
And, of course, all the information is right on the front page, so go back to my front page. I've got all the stuff copied and pasted right there. And for those of you that can't make it and you want to send a card or you want to do something else, the address is there as well, Mary Ellen Madison, 125 Hamilton Street in Penn Yan, 14527. So let's get together today, remember a former racer, and this is a sad day, but again, it's I'm sure Doug would have wanted us to celebrate his accomplishments and not mourn for him, correct?
That's correct. And just to show you what kind of people these Madisons are, this funeral would have normally been scheduled for Friday and Saturday since Doug died on a Wednesday. The funeral director wanted to do it that way, but Mary Ellen and Sarah, his wife and daughter, said, can't do that. The racers are all going to be at the races on Friday and Saturday. So they have it on Wednesday, so that we have no excuses not to be there.
And Doug would not want that of happening on a weekend and have us not going to the racetrack. That's the last thing he would have wanted, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so again, we're going to remember a fallen friend today, and again, for more information, go right to my front page. Gary, I know it's going to be a tough day today, but a fun day as well, so I wish you all the best on Wednesday, my friend.
Thank you very much.
You guys are listening to Doug's Dirt Diary.
Parents, your son or daughter has had their license for a while now, but you want to make sure they're prepared for any situation they may face on the road. High school driver's ed doesn't teach them to drive defensively. They need to be prepared for any highway emergency. For less than a month's insurance, and a whole lot less, BSR instructors at Summit Point Motorsports Park in nearby Summit Point, West Virginia, will teach your son or daughter how to respond instantly and positively to unexpected situations on the road. BSR's specialized accident avoidance training teaches swerve to avoid maneuvers at highway speeds, ocular driving, which focuses driving attention on ways to avoid accidents, vehicle dynamics and feedback, skid control and skid recovery, threshold braking on straights and progressive braking on curves, and off-road recovery techniques. This is stuff driver's ed simply doesn't teach. So call BSR today, 304-725-8444. Give your kid the skill set needed to drive safely and responsibly on the highway. That's 304-725-8444.
So when you get to the corner of Smith and Orchard, you're going to want to take a
You
left.
are not going to
Then
believe
what you're
this.
going to do is turn
Marcy
onto
and
Marcy
Brad just
Avenue
broke up,
and go past
and
the
apparently
first 3
she's
lights,
happy
and
about
then take
it.
the next left.
I don't really
Drive
think she's
5 more
happy,
blocks,
but
and you should be
who am
there.
I to judge, right?
Park on the right.
That's
I'll
what
see
I
you
heard
later
last
tonight.
night.
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ, photo booth, and uplighting company of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Stuart Ovens and his staff at Creekside Entertainment are professional and experienced with events of any type. Creekside Entertainment specializes in wedding packages that are affordable and fun, and they are ready to serve you with the most up-to-date music and karaoke selection. If you can sing it in the shower, you can come out and sing it with Creekside Entertainment. And don't forget about the Creekside Entertainment photo booth and uplighting service that will transform your wedding or party into an event the family will be talking about for years. Trust the entertainment company that racers trust. Call Stu at area code 315-481-9700 or visit them online at creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. Creekside Entertainment, division sponsor of the Black Rock Bandits in 2015.
Hi race fans, this is Brandon Butler, and you're listening to Turn 5 Live on PMN.
Sharing some memories today about a colleague of ours in the racing community who we are really missing so badly at this point. Gary Montgomery, of course, we lost him, ironically, on his birthday of all things at 74 years old after a long illness. Some of us were lucky enough to work with Gary. Some of us were fortunate enough to listen to him in the grandstand. And a lot of you who probably not listening to this knew him from his role in politics. Also knew him from his job working finance at Xerox, where he was an executive. I mean, this was a smart, educated man, somebody we were very lucky to have in our presence for as long as we did. Steve Ovens is going to be delivering the eulogy at the service coming up this Saturday for Gary Montgomery. He's actually working on this a little bit here on Sunday afternoon, taking a little break to chat with me here in the studio. Hey, Steve, how we doing?
Well, we're doing well. Obviously, we're thinking of Karen and Gary's children and the entire family at this time, and it's just one of those. I think they worded it well on Dirt Track Digest when they said we lost one of the good guys, and Gary certainly classified as one of the good guys.
How did you get to meet Gary, and what was your first, even knowing that Gary was around?
I think the first time I really even knew who Gary Montgomery was being a little kid, going to the races at Canandaigua, or even more so, seeing him on TV, calling races on rush hour on dirt. And the funny thing, the funny thing about Gary is the fact that Gary and I lived in the same town.
Really?
We lived in Penn Yan. And I had no idea until I got to know Gary later in life that we lived in the same town. And this guy that I, kind of idolized on TV, calling these dirt races, lived in the same town we did. I had no idea for quite a while until I got to know Gary better and knew where he was from, and then started working with him on some media stuff. So it was just kind of crazy because we lived in the same town for the longest time, and I never knew that, but it was when Gary was calling races with Doug Logan on TV, man, it was appointment television.
Now, growing up as a kid and going to the racetracks, and now Steve, by the way, is an announcer. He announced at Outlaw Speedway and at Woodhull this past season. Was he one of the guys that made you want to do that?
Oh, no doubt about it. Getting to know Gary, I mean, because before I started announcing at the tracks, we had gotten started with Turn 5 and covering series and races, and having, Gary, like I said, being from the same town, I had more access to Gary as far as the series director of the 360 late model series. I had more access to Gary than I did anybody else that we could try and talk to. And through talking to Gary, when there was things at what used to be called Black Rock, when they were going through a couple different promoters, and some opportunities came along to announce when Mike Jackson was promoting the facility. Gary called me up, wrote me several emails, and said, Steve, you've been doing the show for this amount of time. If you're interested in getting into announcing or being a part of calling races and things like that, he goes, this is an opportunity in your backyard. And so, Gary was a guy that, I called on for, reference purposes, and so that was kind of how I got into working for Mike Jackson for that year at now Outlaw. And then a year after that, Gary was one of the guys that put in a great word for me with Ted White and Brandy White down at Woodhull to be able to help me get a position down there. So without Gary's mentorship and even more as a mentor, Doug, more as a friend. I mean, there was times that Gary and I would talk, and it didn't even have anything to do about racing. We just would catch up and how's things with my then fiance, and we had a couple of afternoons that we spent with Gary and Karen out at their home. They have just a beautiful home on Cuca Lake, and we spent several afternoons out there, watching the lake goers and talking about life and talking about racing, and it's just some memories that now you look back and you feel like you're just going to treasure those memories.
How did you first have interaction with him? Did somebody introduce you? Did you go up and introduce yourself?
I kind of introduced myself, but Gary was announcing and knew my father actually. Way back when my father was racing street stocks, or I guess maybe they'd even might call them pure stocks, what we would know as pure stocks now. And so Gary actually knew my father well before he knew me. And the thing that everybody knows about Gary, and if they didn't know, they know now in reading a few of the articles that have been put out, Doug, Gary was famous for giving guys nicknames. And my father was one of them. It was Gary Montgomery that started calling my dad Hollywood Stew. And,
I like that.
So like I said, he knew my father well before he knew me, but knowing my dad, it was one of those. That's kind of how our first conversation started. Gary was promoting and announcing it at Dundee, and I was just coming up through the ranks as a youth bandit champion, and I'd moved up to the adult division, and some of the videos that we got from Mel Thomas back in those days, it was always fun to, because as a racer, you buy a video and you're like, man, you always buy the ones you run well in, because you know the announcers are talking about you. And so you buy that, and it was always fun to hear what Gary had to say, because like I said, he knew us well. We lived in the same town. He kind of knew our family history, and that wasn't just something special to us. He knew everybody. He knew their families. His preparation, and this just doesn't go with the dirt track stuff, Doug. Gary's preparation, whether he was at Canandaigua Speedway, Outlaw Speedway, or covering NASCAR for Motor Racing Network, his preparation was second to none, and I think that made all of us feel special and felt like Gary was our friend, not just an announcer.
I would imagine the first time you heard him mention your name on one of those DVDs, you're like, "All right, he knows who I am."
Yeah. No, it That's exactly it. You felt like he knows more about you, and because he was announcing that, you kind of felt like, well, because now Gary knows me so well, and he's the announcer. Now the people in the grandstands or the people that are buying videos that maybe weren't at the races, now they might know who you are too. And for a racer, not even looking at the marketing side of it, but just as a racer and kind of having that pride, that's a big deal. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of announcers who don't go through the pits nearly as much as Gary used to do. And I said this a few times on some interviews I've done. He didn't care if you came in with a stacker hauler and a couple of modifieds or just came in flat towing an enduro car. He treated everybody the same.
He did, and I'll tell you, the one thing I've noticed, since the announcement of his passing, is you hear that story, Doug, and you hear it from not even, the premier division guys. You're hearing this from guys that raced 4-cylinders and front-wheel drives and IMCA modifieds. I mean, he really did go to, it really did not matter, stacker, hauler, open trailer, support division. You might have brought your car in on a tow bar. I mean, Gary, he did not discriminate on getting to know every driver in the pit area, and some of the stories that people have been sharing has just been phenomenal.
Yeah, I was talking to Brad Steinrook, runs a pure stock, actually a factory stock, and he had stickers on his car because he knew Gary from his time at Canandaigua. So, yeah, it wasn't just the big-name teams guys. Gary was a friend of everybody. And I don't really know how to phrase this next part, Steve, and maybe as you write your eulogy, you'll probably think of a better way to phrase it than I will. But the thing with Gary Montgomery is he oozed class without being like an untouchable, above-everything kind of thing. Is that kind of right?
I think that's perfect. I mean, he was, and that's the thing. I mean, there was such a long period of time that Gary worked alongside with Glenn in his time working for Glenn Donnelly. That he was in the upper echelon of the management of dirt motorsports, Doug, and so to be able to make himself available and have such great relationships with all of the race. I mean, there's not too many of folks in the upper echelon when it comes to a series or an organization like that you can have that kind of access and be able to have those conversations with that are up in that upper echelon, and I think that's very well said.
Quiet class, almost. And working with Doug Logan, let's be honest, here's a nationally known announcer, and Glenn Donnelly thought enough of him to pair him with Doug Logan.
And they were such a good pair.
They were.
I mean, and that was the thing, was, Gary's preparation and knowing these drivers as he did. I mean, I can't tell you in the last couple of weeks, I've gone through every interview that Gary's done with you, Doug, on your site, and I have to tell you that, just to gloat on your site a little bit, I mean, the fact that I could go back and listen to interviews from 2007, 2008, and all the way up to present day, that has helped me so much try to get ready to speak on Gary's behalf. This coming week it was that preparation of knowing these guys. I mean, even some of his interviews that he did with you back then. I mean, talking about some of the champions from the BRP tour, and he didn't just give you a name and a car number or maybe where they're from. He'd give you the rundown of, well, his wife Christy and all their kids, and it's in his occupation. What does he do for a living? Because a lot of these racers, that especially with the BRP tour, these guys aren't racing for a living.
No.
They're doing something full time, and they're having fun on the weekends. And that was the thing, is when he was matched up with Doug Logan, Doug was able to kind of point the conversation in a certain direction. And then it's almost like he just handed the reins to Gary, and Gary would go on about this driver and their hometown and how many different car owners they've driven for, and that kind of thing. And it was just, it was just an incredible pairing. And like I said, for I'm gonna say I was 10, 11, maybe 12 years old. Like I said, that was appointment television because the way he could give that information, and I probably didn't even realize at that age that I was going to have an interest in this kind of stuff. But I just love that. I mean, there's one of those rush hour shows that is my favorite of all time. They did a race at Canandaigua, and they did a whole the whole first 5-10 minutes of the show was talking about how dominant Bob McCready was that season, and just hyping up Bob McCready and talking about how dominant he'd been and how good the cars were, and the way the way Gary described. I mean, and this will tell you just I guess I'm a little bit of a dork on this stuff, Doug, but the way he described Bob McCready, the way he backs that car into turn 3 was a thing of beauty, and I watched that the other night. After,
Oh, you did?
What's that?
You watched it the other night? Where'd you find it? Online?
There's a lot of these videos that you can find on YouTube.
I'll have to look.
If you go
Okay.
to YouTube.com and do a search for Rush Hour on Dirt.
Okay.
You're going to find some videos that I don't know if people had these recorded on VHSs and they got them transferred to computer, or how that all works. And maybe now that I say this, maybe somebody's going to go ahead and have them disappear or something. I'm not sure, but I looked back at some of those, and it just gives you chills. The way he described that, and the passion in which he talked about these heroes of ours that raced on dirt. It to me, Doug, it sets Gary apart from any of us out here that are still doing it now.
I just did that, too, by the way. There's a lot of them on there, guys. How about that second one down from 97? Tim McCready looks about 14 years old in that still frame they got there. So, yeah, and there's the one from Canandaigua right there. It's from 1997. So, I'm going to have to get into this later on tonight, guys, and do some homework here. So when is the eulogy, the actual funeral, on Saturday?
So they'll be having a memorial service. There'll be no prior calling hours, but there will be a memorial service on Saturday at 1 o'clock. It's going to be at the First Presbyterian Church in Penn Yan, and the address is 211 Main Street in Penn Yan. I imagine that some folks that will be listening will either come from the north or the south, and if they come down through the thruway in Geneva, they'll probably send you through Preemption Road and onto State Route 54, which will bring you right into Penn Yan, and it'll bring you right to the corner where the church is. But First Presbyterian Church, and the address is 211 Main Street.
I've never had to give a eulogy, especially for somebody, like this. This is going to be hard for you, isn't it?
It is. I truth be told, Doug, Gary called me to his house a couple weeks ago to have a conversation about this, and
really,
Gary knew that things were not going very well, and the doctors had said that he only had a certain amount of time, and he sent me an email and asked if I would come visit, and he let me know that things were taking a turn south, and that he wanted to have a long conversation. And I think I was there. It was the last race of the season at Woodhall, so I had to get out of there early afternoon. But I think we spent about 3 hours at his house there at Cuca Lake, and we talked about everything. We talked about the beginning of his announcing career all the way to the final event of the BRP Tour, and that race took place at Woodhall. And actually, Doug, that night after him and I met and kind of talked about everything that he wanted to have people here at his memorial service, him and his son Jeff and his granddaughter Lizzie, who races in North Carolina, they all came to Woodhall that night, and we set them up in a press box, and that was the last race for the 360 late models at Woodhall, is because we're not going to have that division in 2017. That division is going to be going away. And so that was the very last race the 360 late models would have at Woodhull, and Gary was there to see it.
That's
and
nice.
the field gave a chilling four-wide salute, and his granddaughter Lizzie got to throw the green flag for that
Nice.
feature, and that will be a night that I'll never forget. After the conversation he and I had that afternoon, and then to go to Woodhull, and a place that he had worked so well with the BRP Tour, and to see their final race there, and now to look back and you know, to know what was coming, you know, that was a real special day.
Well, I'm happy that we were able to do that. I'm happy you're going to be able to carry on Gary's wishes at this eulogy. Like we said, 1 p.m. this Saturday at the First Presbyterian Church at 211 Main Street. And where's that again? Where did you say it was again? What city is that?
It's going to be in Penn Yan, New York.
Okay.
So it'll be just a little south of Geneva and north of Dundee. So if you have ever been out to
Beautiful
Geneva
country.
or Outlaw Speedway,
Mhm.
right smack in the middle of both of
Gotcha.
them.
Okay. Well, I wish you all the best. I appreciate you taking some time with me today. And, of course, so you can listen to Steve's show tomorrow night. You're getting this on Monday, 7:30 still?
Yeah, it'll be 7:30 on Tuesday. We're going to do an entire show dedicated to Gary. We're going to have a lot of guests. We'll be playing this interview here with you, Doug, talking about Gary and some of our fond memories of him. And yeah, I know that Tuesday night there will be some other things that I'm sure people will be tuning into and watching, but I won't even get into all of that political stuff. But
Nope.
If you happen to miss it on Tuesday, we'll have it uploaded on YouTube so that people can go back and listen. We've got we're going to have, of course, Brad, Clint, and myself. We'll have this time here with you, Doug, and I've already talked to Shane Andrews. We'll have him on the show as well, and we'll get Mel Thomas in there as well.
I wish you all the best, and yeah. So be smart, guys. Don't listen to all the other stuff. Tuesday night, listen to Steve. Let's think about Gary. Think about some of the good that's coming to the sport, and someone like I said that we were very fortunate to have in our midst for as long as we did. Steve, good luck. If you need anything during the week, please don't hesitate to call. Okay.
Will do.
All right, you guys listen to the only place you get this stuff right here on Doug's Dirt Diary.
Max Dairy Bar is a proud supporter of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Opened in 1974, Max Dairy Bar has been a Penn Yan, Cayuga Lake, and Yates County staple, serving the best Hershey's hard ice cream. They also have soft serve ice cream, their weekly yogurt special, sorbet flavors, gluten-free options, frozen Greek yogurt, and non-dairy lemon ice. Don't forget about their tricky 18-hole putt-putt course that will test your skill to see if you have what it takes to be a champion. Max Dairy Bar and Mini Golf, located on State Route 14A, just south of the village of Penn Yan, right on the way to Black Rock Speedway on Friday nights. Visit them online at www.maxdairybar.com or Max Dairy Bar on Facebook and Twitter. Stop by Max Dairy Bar and tell them Turn 5 Live sent you.
We're growing like crazy and need account reps who know their way around agencies, the internet, and social media. Got connections? Or do you know how to get to the decision makers? Are you fearless? We need you. Internet radio, or as we call it, wireless mobile radio, is rapidly becoming the place to be with almost limitless income potential. So contact us to get involved with the fastest growing professionally produced group of internet radio stations in the world. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444. Or you can email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ, photo booth, and uplighting company of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Stuart Ovens and his staff at Creekside Entertainment are professional and experienced with events of any type. Creekside Entertainment specializes in wedding packages that are affordable and fun, and they are ready to serve you with the most up-to-date music and karaoke selection. If you can sing it in the shower, you can come out and sing it with Creekside Entertainment. And don't forget about the Creekside Entertainment photo booth and uplighting service that will transform your wedding or party into an event the family will be talking about for years. Trust, the entertainment company that racers trust. Call Stu at area code 315-481-9700 or visit them online at creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. Creekside Entertainment, division sponsor of the Black Rock Bandits in 2015.
Hi race fans, this is Jeffrey Doherty and you're listening to Turn 5 Live on PMN.
Welcome back, race fans, to Turn 5 Live here on the Performance Motorsports Network. We are remembering our friend Gary Montgomery, and now we're going to go off to the Race Chaser Online hotline to bring in a guy that I think is going to have some fond memories of Gary Montgomery, and that, of course, is none other than the voice, Shane Andrews. Shane, I appreciate your time. I know that we're gathered here kind of discussing under, not the best circumstances, but what a great opportunity at least to talk about our good friend Gary Montgomery.
Steve, I appreciate the opportunity, and first and foremost, my deepest condolences and prayers go out to the entire Montgomery family on their loss, and it's definitely left a void for them that you're all going to miss. Gary left a great impression on a lot of people, and to have the opportunity to have worked with him on numerous occasions, to collaborate with him on a couple of endeavors, means a lot to me, and it's sad. It really is. We're all going to miss him. We really are.
No doubt about it. Shane, what were some of do you remember the first time you met Gary Montgomery?
Oh, my first time I met Gary, it had to have been, I can't remember the exact time and place, but I can tell you that it had to have been at a dirt sanctioned race back in it had to have been in the late 90s when I was just breaking into the announcing gig, and Gary was one of the voices that was synonymous with the circuit. Not just Canandaigua, but also, doing This Week on Dirt and the Rush Hour on Dirt shows. We tuned in all the time, and him and Doug Logan doing those shows. And I do remember walking up to Gary Montgomery and introducing myself to him and, telling him that I wanted to get into this gig and, and ask him, what advice can you give me? And Gary told me one of the best things that any announcer can follow, and Gary was the best example of it, is do your homework. Get out there and talk to the drivers, talk to the crews, do your homework. Know these individuals. And there was no better person at doing that than Gary Montgomery, the best at it. He could tell you stuff about a driver that would make you say, really? I didn't know that. And that's what he did best. And if that's something that I can take away from him, the advice he gave me is do your homework.
He had a real knack for that, and it wasn't, the way I told it to somebody the other day was, Gary didn't have the access to, trying to pull what information he could from social media. He got this info by walking pit to pit. And as we've seen over the last couple of days of drivers sharing memories, it did not matter what division you ran in. Gary Montgomery stopped with a handshake, a hello, and what's going on.
Absolutely, and that's something that I'll always remember about him and always take from him. Listen, I guess plagiarism or imitation is the best form of flattery, right?
Yeah.
And let's face it, us announcers, we borrow a little bit from other announcers to help our shtick. And I'll be honest with you. I saw what Gary did in the pits, and I wanted to emulate that by getting around and talking to those drivers, and not only doing the homework, but just think of the respect that is gained and the respect that he had from all the drivers in any division. And it wasn't just the big block modifieds. It was the guys that raced the street stocks or the four cylinders or the jalopies that didn't get the big headlines like the big classes would. But they appreciated the fact that he was there and took time to talk to them and make them feel a part of the show and feel welcome. And that's something that I learned from him that I'll always remember and will not take for granted.
I recently heard an interview that Joe Murata did with Doug Elkins talking about, how he is, going to be very use his voice to make Gary Montgomery's name, present in the discussion for the award that recently was named after Andy Fusco with the Dirt Hall of Fame. I couldn't agree with Joe more on that because of just how much Gary brought to the sport and brought into so many people's living rooms. It was appointment television watching them on Rush Hour.
Absolutely. Gary was an integral part of getting that off the ground, being in the booth with Doug Logan and working with Andy Fusco. And Gary, up to this year was still very active in the motorsports portion of announcing. He was at the finale at the fairgrounds to help us salute our champions. He filled in for me on occasion at Canandaigua on some nights that I couldn't make it. And Gary, anytime I sent him an email or asked him if he could fill in, it was like, oh my gosh, yes, let me find out. And if I can do it, and every time it was, yes, I want to do it, I'll be there. And he absolutely adored doing that and being a part of it. And, of course, his BRP late model series. And he was still active with the Hall of Fame for this year's inductions, on the nominating and voting committee, and still involved with that. And, he has left a legacy that is going to be unmatched here in Central and Western New York as far as motorsports announcers go. And I'm privileged to have had the opportunity to not only work with him, but also get to know him as an individual, and I'll miss him. I really will.
Something else, Shane, that was so unique about Gary as well is, anytime you saw Gary Montgomery at the racetrack, his wife Karen was not far behind. Rather, she was in the booth with him or working with the scorers for the BRP series. Just something that, is maybe a little more rare today than it was back in that time, but just quite a pair, and such a loss for their family. But you always saw those two working together.
Absolutely, a wonderful couple, and so well respected. And if you saw Gary by himself, it was a rarity. It really was. Like you said, they were always together, whether it was at the track when he was announcing or the BRP tour. Just an absolute wonderful couple who obviously were enamored with one another and enjoyed each other's company, and were truly in love with one another. And that's a definite rarity that we see today, and it's refreshing to be able to have seen and had that.
Well, Shane, I know that one place, and I'll start to close with this. One place that Gary had a real special place in his heart was Canandaigua, and I know that now current day, that's a place that obviously has a real special place in your heart as well. I imagine that, coming up this season as we get, start preparations for 2017, there's going to be so many of those Canandaigua faithful that, I'm sure have been saddened by the news of Gary's loss. But his love of Canandaigua, it's something that I think only a guy like Gary or you could describe to the fans.
Well, I'll say this, Steve, that no matter how long I announce at Canandaigua, it will never be my track. It will always be Gary Montgomery's. Gary Montgomery is synonymous with Canandaigua Speedway. And I'm only there as an announcer, but because that is Gary's house, and it will always be Gary's house, and that's how I look at it. I may be the announcer there now, but that was Gary Montgomery's racetrack to be the announcer at. That was his.
And it just goes to show you that land of legends, it doesn't just apply to the drivers.
Absolutely. He's an announcing legend with all that he accomplished. One of the things that as I mentioned earlier, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Sometimes when I'm announcing and the caution comes out, I'll go, yellow, yellow, yellow. And you know who that came from.
I do. Absolutely. Man, Shane, I appreciate the time as we remember Gary here tonight on Turn 5. I know that, along with Gary, you're one of the respected names in the business, and boy, we're sure going to miss him, and we appreciate your time sharing some memories.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on, and thank you, Steve. And again, my heartfelt condolences and prayers to Gary's family and all his fans and everybody that ever came in contact with that wonderful man. He is definitely going to be missed, but he will never be forgotten.
That's for sure. Folks, that's the voice, Shane Andrews, joining us here on Turn 5. We'll step aside here when we come back. More memories for our friend, Gary Montgomery. You're listening to Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. Now they're also an official motorsports content partner of Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for all their raw materials, such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much, much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is your number one source for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the road to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com and SRI-supplies.com. You can also find them on Facebook at Stock Car Steel and Aluminum, or call either company toll-free at 1-888-752-7272.
Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ, photo booth, and uplighting company of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Stuart Ovens and his staff at Creekside Entertainment are professional and experienced with events of any type. Creekside Entertainment specializes in wedding packages that are affordable and fun, and they are ready to serve you with the most up-to-date music and karaoke selection. If you can sing it in the shower, you can come out and sing it with Creekside Entertainment. And don't forget about the Creekside Entertainment photo booth and uplighting service that will transform your wedding or party into an event the family will be talking about for years. Trust the entertainment company that racers trust. Call Stu at area code 315-481-9700 or visit them online at creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. Creekside Entertainment, division sponsor of the Black Rock Bandits in 2015.
We're growing like crazy and need account reps who know their way around agencies, the internet, and social media. Got connections? Or do you know how to get to the decision makers? Are you fearless? We need you. Internet radio, or as we call it, wireless mobile radio, is rapidly becoming the place to be with almost limitless income potential. So contact us to get involved with the fastest growing professionally produced group of internet radio stations in the world. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444. Or you can email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
Hi, race fans. This is Billy Van Pelt, and you're listening to Turn 5 Live on PMN.
Welcome back, race fans, to Turn 5 Live here on the Performance Motorsports Network. Stephen Ovens joining you tonight on a sad and somber note as we share memories of our good friend Gary Montgomery, who we've lost this past week. And when I came up with my short list of folks that I wanted to get some feedback from and share some good memories of Gary, of course, Paul Szmal was one of those. Paul, having worked alongside Gary with some Rush Hour shows and things that we all remember watching on television. And Paul, I guess I'll start there. As sad as it is this week to lose Gary, we're sharing some good memories. But I'm curious, what was your first memory of meeting Gary Montgomery?
Actually, the first time I probably would have met Gary Montgomery was the first year that I worked for the Dirt organization when I started on This Week on Dirt in 1991. And went to shoot something in Canandaigua and got a chance to meet Gary. And then a year later, I was announcing alongside of him at Canandaigua. And you want to talk about being intimidated. I had been announcing since 1986. I had been doing it for a few years, but all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, I'm working with Gary Montgomery. Wow! And I think that wow factor was always there for me anytime that Gary and I did a show together, whether it was in Canandaigua or during Dirt Week at Rolling Wheels, or even at Syracuse during Super Dirt Week.
And you mentioned Canandaigua, Paul, and there was such a big place in Gary's heart for Canandaigua that it just felt like Canandaigua was the house that Montgomery built, so to speak.
Yeah, there are announcers in this business who, in this area and other areas who are kind of defined by the places that they work, or the places that they work are defined by them. Roy Sola at Oswego, I think, is a classic example of that, and certainly Gary working at Canandaigua for as many years as he did. And, just the level of excitement, that booming baritone voice of his, which is, when he started to get into it, when it was a good race and he was on it, I don't think there was, anybody better to be alongside and listen to.
And, from taking that from the announcer's booth and carrying that over to the television production, it then brought that excitement into how many countless numbers of homes of people that were both dirt fans, and then maybe a lot of fans that were being exposed to the sport for the first time.
Yeah, and probably my best memory of that, and I'm sure other people may remember this too. I don't remember the exact year that it happened, but it may have been the first year that we did Rush Hour. We were at Mr. Dirt Track USA at Lebanon Valley. And this was at the height of the Brett and Danny feud when Danny was driving Ray Bramel's Freightliner car. And these two got into a battle on the racetrack for the lead during Mr. Dirt Track USA. And when you're a pit reporter, you get what's called program feed in the headphones that you're wearing, so you can actually hear what the announcers are talking about. And then every now and again, the producer will talk to you and tell you, what they're looking for and everything. And the battle on the racetrack started really heating up, and Gary went from being the mild-mannered TV Gary to announcer Gary in a heartbeat. And I was standing there literally just kind of pumping my fist in the air like, yeah, damn it, go after him, man. It was a killer moment, and I think it even took Doug Logan back a little bit, because Doug hadn't really been around Gary in that element. The television element is a little bit more refined, a little bit more restrained than doing a PA call. And Gary just started getting into what was happening on the racetrack, and it was vintage Gary. And I think even Doug was probably sitting there and was like, wow.
Well, that was what made them such a good team. Looking back on some of that footage that you can find around the internet, I mean, that was what made them such a good team. Was they were kind of the yin and yang of dirt track television.
Well, yeah, because Doug was your consummate professional broadcaster, having come from a television background and a sports background. And, he had done play-by-play, but he had done mainly football and basketball for Syracuse University for so many years and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, Doug Logan really enjoys racing, always has. That was one of the reasons why he was with he did This Week on Dirt for so many years, was he had a love for the sport. He found it very exciting. But Gary, having kind of grown up in the sport and having been around it as long as he had been, even through the later years of Gary's career, he never lost that passion. And I think that's what makes and sets some announcers and television people kind of a tier above, is that they're first and foremost a fan, and they have a passion for the sport that is not easily measured. It can go off the scale. Gary was one of those guys, and for him to be able to carry that passion not only through announcing and through television, but later in his career to become a race organizer and a series organizer with the BRP Can-Am series was amazing to watch.
What is the one thing about Gary that you'll remember or even take with you forward as a dirt track announcer yourself?
Probably the two words that come to mind with Gary are class and professionalism. Gary was always a class act and one of the most professional people I've ever worked with. You having been an announcer for a few years now, Stephen, you know how chaotic things can get behind the scenes and how crazy things can get. And you know how frustrating it can be when you're calling a race that has, 14 laps and you've had 13 caution flags. I never once heard Gary Montgomery make any kind of a negative comment on the PA about it. I never even heard him say it when the microphone was off. He was about trying to entertain folks and inform folks. And that is a stellar example that a lot of people in our industry, if they listen to old tapes of Gary, you're going to learn so much just by listening to that. And the fact that he was a gentleman, he was a stand-up guy, he was passionate, but always ready with a handshake, always glad to see you, always willing to engage in conversation, didn't judge people or racers by their actions on the racetrack. Honestly, I don't know if I've met anybody quite like him in my career, and I'm very sorry that he's no longer with us.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's just been such a loss to try and wrestle with as we get ready for his memorial service on Saturday. He knew so many racers so well in the pit area, and I know that one of his final wishes was to have as many racers on hand on Saturday as possible, and hopefully folks that are listening to this later this week can make it out to the First Presbyterian Church in Penn Yan on Saturday at 1 o'clock in Penn Yan, New York. That was the one thing. He knew so many racers, Paul, and that's something I know personally that I've learned from, kind of being mentored by Gary over the years, is you have to do your homework. You have to know those racers inside and out so that you can bring that information to the race fans and make them feel as though they're, they have the inside info. They know what's going on out there. Paul, we appreciate the time tonight, talking and sharing some memories of Gary. And again, we appreciate your time joining us and sharing those.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephen.
All right, Paul Szmal joining us on the Race Chaser Online hotline, and we're going to step aside here. When we come back, more memories of our friend Gary Montgomery right here on Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
You hear that? That's the sound of America's only sports car. That's right, it's a Corvette. But not just any Corvette. It's your Corvette. It's that who cares if there's traffic part of your day. And this can be you when you come to Cooper Corvettes. With 60 years of Corvettes to choose from, there's always a Corvette in your budget. And they'll service any Corvette you bring in. Cooper Corvettes, on Route 1 just north of Quantico and Triangle. Call, click, or visit CooperCorvettes.com.
Hi, this is Yen Scott from Summit Point Kart in Summit Point, West Virginia. If you're looking for a real racing experience on a real racetrack, come out to Summit Point Kart this weekend. For as little as $25, you can get your racing career started. New this year, Summit Point Kart offers the RX 250 capable of over 75 miles an hour. We're open every Friday from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m., Saturday from noon till 10 p.m., and Sunday from noon till 9 p.m. For more information, go to our website, summitpointkartwithak.com, or you can call us at 304-725-5270. Summit Point Kart, your East Coast karting center.
In the race of everyday life, it's nice to have the green flag, but drivetrain problems are the pits. A fully remanufactured engine, transmission, or differential from Jasper Engines and Transmissions costs less than a new vehicle and comes with a 3-year, 100,000-mile nationwide transferable warranty. See JasperEngines.com for details and get the green flag in your race of everyday life.
See the boys at Chandler & Sons Automotive, 45977 Old Ox Road in Sterling. Give them a call, 703-437-7300.
Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ, photo booth, and uplighting company of Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network. Stuart Ovens and his staff at Creekside Entertainment are professional and experienced with events of any type. Creekside Entertainment specializes in wedding packages that are affordable and fun, and they are ready to serve you with the most up-to-date music and karaoke selection. If you can sing it in the shower, you can come out and sing it with Creekside Entertainment. And don't forget about the Creekside Entertainment photo booth and uplighting service that will transform your wedding or party into an event the family will be talking about for years. Trust the entertainment company that racers trust. Call Stu at area code 315-481-9700 or visit them online at creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. Creekside Entertainment, division sponsor of the Black Rock Bandits in 2015.
How would you like to win a brand new Corvette? Larry O's got all the details.
WinYourNewCar.com. Enter America's #1 dream car giveaway contest. At WinYourNewCar.com, complete the puzzle the fastest and win a new Corvette tax-free. Come on, stop dreaming, start driving with WinYourNewCar.com.
Hi, race fans. This is Gary Tompkins, and you're listening to Turn 5 Live on PMN.
Welcome back, race fans, to Turn 5 Live here on the Performance Motorsports Network. A sad and somber episode here this week as we remember our fallen friend Gary Montgomery, who passed away this past week at age 74. And one of the guys on the short list of folks that I wanted to call and talk about Gary tonight is none other than my announcing partner for the past 2 seasons at Outlaw Speedway, Mel Thomas, joining us from Geneva here on the Race Chaser Hotline. And Mel, I appreciate the time under these sad circumstances, but we've got a lot of good memories that I know that we can share with folks tonight.
Well, I'm sure we do. Gary and I go back a long ways from his early days of being in Canandaigua when I was doing video there.
You know, you bring up Canandaigua, and I think that's so appropriate because Canandaigua was one of Gary's favorite, if not his absolute favorite place to be. The land of legends, and boy, Gary just loved being there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. By the grace of God, and 800 horsepower.
Yeah, no doubt. Talking about Canada, was Canandaigua the first place or time that you met Gary over the years?
No, I met him, back in the 80s at the old Kodak Auto Racing Boosters Club banquets. He and Jack Burgess shared some of the duties there back when he was announcing at Spencer Speedway.
Gotcha. And he one story that Gary shared with me that I thought was just over the top was one of Gary's, Gary's first night announcing solo at Spencer was the night that the car got airborne and went up into the pit grandstand and unfortunately killed a handful of people. certainly, Mel, you've seen a lot of things, either behind the microphone or behind the lens, over the years at the dirt tracks. But I can't imagine, as a young guy coming up through the announcing ranks myself, I can't imagine my first night being on the job and witnessing something like that. And that was exactly what happened to Gary.
Well, that was, a tragic affair, and Gary's relayed that story to me, through the years, a number of different times in different places with different people. And, it was a tragic event, and, it's not the way you want to start into this game, but, that's part of the game.
Yeah. Yep. Gary, one of the things that we talk about is, Gary, for the longest time, was just the fixture at Canandaigua. He worked alongside Glenn Donnelly for so many years there, and really, had that place thriving. Prior to the Speedway sale in the mid 2000s there, early 2000s, I guess, and he really made that place the land of legend. He made that place a destination for some of the biggest names of the sport. I know you got to cover a lot of that behind the camera. I mean, those were really some glory days for Canandaigua.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I not only worked behind the camera, but, once I got Bob Miller behind the camera, I worked with Gary a number of times announcing there as well. So, between that and the announcing with This Week on Dirt, we worked together for numerous events around Central New York.
Gary was such a fixture and a popular guy in the pits. What was he like to work with on a professional level, Mel? With the This Week on Dirt, Rush Hour on Dirt, and calling races at Canandaigua. What was that like working with him?
Well, I think because of his background and his job at Xerox, he was somewhat of a perfectionist, but he wanted everything perfect, and he wanted everybody to do their homework and do the job right. And,
homework is something that, we've had several people tell us throughout the program tonight is, the way that Gary kind of perused the pit area and gathered data on each and every driver, is something that, I look at now and say, I like to think that I do the same, but I know, seeing Gary's work over the course of my childhood, I know I can improve even more because, it was unthinkable how much information he knew about all these drivers.
Well, you look back then, we didn't have 5, 6, and 7 divisions to talk with the drivers on. We had maybe 3 divisions that we had to talk with people on, and it was a lot easier to put that in the memory bank than it is nowadays to talk to 100 and some drivers and get any kind of info or background on them.
Yeah. What is the all of the years of all of the TV productions that took place through the years? Is there any memory with Gary or a race that sticks out in your mind as a fond memory, calling some of those races and working behind the scenes?
No, I think probably Syracuse was the biggest obstacle for everybody because of the stage that it was set on. And everybody wanted to be at their finest come the events at Syracuse.
Yeah, definitely. Over the last couple of seasons that you and I had a chance to work together at Black Rock, now named Outlaw Speedway, I know there was a couple occasions that Gary got to fill in, and it was. Even though I got to watch from afar, I was out traveling on work, but, having the technology that we do with me being able to listen in, I mean, what a riot to see, Gary, even though he wasn't announcing races on a weekly basis, man, he still had a knack for it. He didn't lose anything over time.
Oh no, he was a true professional in whatever he looked to do. As far as working with people, he was easy to get along with, and you could have a banner back and forth, and it would keep the people informed, and that's part of the announcer's job.
Yeah, absolutely. We've called our fair share or filmed our fair share of some of the 360 late model races over the years. Got to know names like Jeremy Wonderling and Bryce Davis, John Waters that have now come through the ranks and continued on into either other divisions or even now the crate late models. There were so many great names that came out of that division that Gary promoted for so many years.
Well, Gary and Karen did a tremendous job for getting that program going and off the ground, and it was his baby all the way, and he made sure that everybody was a professional like him that was involved with the series.
And it took that division it took a local division to many tracks that these guys had maybe only heard of or seen on TV watching Rush Hour on Dirt. I mean, and now they were getting an opportunity to tow there. I'm sure you were at a few races where they were, where they would come in as a series, and for these guys, what a treat to get to go and race at tracks they'd only ever heard of.
Yeah, I mean, they traveled around, and I hit a few of those races. Like Little Valley. That was one that sticks out in my mind. Back when they were running there on a regular basis.
Yeah, and what a unique track that is compared to some of the other ones that the guys that would travel to Little Valley, compete at around here. I mean, that thing is a paper clip, but I'll tell you what a fast track and a real racy place.
Oh yeah, between having those BRP late models, and I went there for a number of sprint car events as well. And it's different than anything else around here.
As we wrap up this session of sharing some memories with Mel Thomas here, Mel, we're coming up on Gary's memorial on Saturday. What is one thing, if you had an opportunity to share one lasting memory or something that you'll carry on, that from getting to know Gary or working with him that you will remember going forward?
Well, I'd say just his love of the sport.
Yeah.
Even in the last 6 months, he was still going to as many races as his health would allow him to, and that was his true love of the sport.
Even if it was trying to ride out all the way to Lebanon Valley.
Well, I mean, he was involved with the Hall of Fame induction at Weedsport in August, and that was a big thrill. Even though he wasn't getting around the best, it was just a thrill to have him in the house.
No doubt, and I'm sure a future Hall of Famer himself.
Yeah, I've thought that all along since you gave me the news last week, and. He had a lot of good people look after him. I know George Fisher took good care of him, getting him to some of the events this year at Woodhall as well. And, people cared for the man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mel, appreciate the time tonight. I know it's under some sad circumstances, but you and I both have gotten an opportunity to know this man so well, and we appreciate your memories tonight.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. I really appreciate you including me in it.
That's Mel Thomas from Thomas Video Production, as well as the Outlaw Speedway, and sharing memories here of Gary Montgomery. We'll be back right after this short pause to wrap things up here with some lasting memories of Gary Montgomery. You're listening to Turn 5 Live on the Performance Motorsports Network, the voice of motorsports.
Max Dairy Bar is a proud supporter of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Opened in 1974, Max Dairy Bar has been a Penn Cayuga Lake, and Yates County staple, serving the best Hershey's hard ice cream. They also have soft serve ice cream, their weekly yogurt special, sorbet flavors, gluten-free options, frozen Greek yogurt, and non-dairy lemon ice. Don't forget about their tricky 18-hole putt-putt course that will test your skill to see if you have what it takes to be a champion. Max Dairy Bar and Mini Golf, located on State Route 14A, just south of the village of Penn Yan, right on the way to Black Rock Speedway on Friday nights. Visit them online at www.maxdairybar.com or Max Dairy Bar on Facebook and Twitter. Stop by Max Dairy Bar and tell them Turn 5 Live sent you. Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ, photo booth, and uplighting company of Turn 5 Live and the Performance Motorsports Network. Stuart Ovens and his staff at Creekside Entertainment are professional and experienced with events of any type. Creekside Entertainment specializes in wedding packages that are affordable and fun, and they are ready to serve you with the most up-to-date music and karaoke selection. If you can sing it in the shower, you can come out and sing it with Creekside Entertainment. And don't forget about the Creekside Entertainment photo booth and uplighting service that will transform your wedding or party into an event the family will be talking about for years. Trust the entertainment company that racers trust. Call Stu at area code 315-481-9700 or visit them online at creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. Creekside Entertainment, division sponsor of the Black Rock Bandits in 2015.
We're growing like crazy and need account reps who know their way around agencies, the internet, and social media. Got connections? Or do you know how to get to the decision makers? Are you fearless? We need you. Internet radio, or as we call it, wireless mobile radio, is rapidly becoming the place to be with almost limitless income potential. So contact us to get involved with the fastest growing professionally produced group of internet radio stations in the world. Your imagination is the only limit here. Call 717-749-0444. That's 717-749-0444. Or you can email us at scorpionradiogroup@gmail.com. You want to ask for Sue.
Hi, race fans. This is Shane Tenase, founder of the Go Nuclear Late Model Series, and you're listening to Turn 5 Live on PMN.
Welcome back, race fans, to Turn 5 Live here on the Performance Motorsports Network as we get ready to wrap things up here this evening on our special tribute episode to Gary Montgomery. Hopefully you have enjoyed all of the memories shared by our entire panel tonight joining us on the program, talking about a very, very special man that we are all going to miss dearly, not only in the racing community, but in the local community of Penn Yan, the Finger Lakes, the Southern Tier, a gentleman who really was a visionary for a division of cars in the 360 late models. He was a pioneer in announcing and broadcasting when it comes to the way that you approach announcing dirt track racing and broadcasting it for television purposes. And I think you've had a great mix of folks tonight sharing their memories of Gary Montgomery and just all that he has taught all of us along the way. Gary is going to truly be missed. Our heartfelt condolences, our thoughts and prayers go out to his wife Karen, as well as all of their kids who are going to be in town celebrating Gary's life coming up this Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Penn Yan First Presbyterian Church. Address is 211 Main Street in Penn Yan, New York. And of course, one of Gary's final wishes was to have as many racers as possible come on out to his memorial service to share their memories and celebrate Gary's life and remember all of the good times, of course, and do a little bench racing as well. So if you're here in this program, and you're hearing it to the end, make sure to make your way out there to the First Presbyterian Church in Penn Yan on Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. the start time. I know that Gary Montgomery will be shining down on all of us on Saturday, and I know that when he sees the turnout there, he is going to have a big, big smile on his face watching down from heaven. So without any further ado, we are going to wrap up this special tribute to our friend Gary Montgomery. And Gary, we are going to miss you incredibly. We're so thankful for the time that you were here and everything that you have taught each and every one of us, whether it be a up-and-coming media announcer type folks like Clint, Brad, and myself, or even the racers that you called so many exciting races for over the course of your Hall of Fame career. And we will never forget you. We will always miss you. Godspeed and God bless, Gary Montgomery.
Turn 5 Live is a copyrighted production of the Performance Motorsports Network. PerformanceMotorsportsNetwork.com is a member of the Scorpion Radio Group Incorporated and may not be rebroadcast, replicated, or saved in any media without the explicit written permission of PMN. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host, co-host, and guest, and do not necessarily reflect those of the management and ownership of either the Performance Motorsports Network or Scorpion Radio Group Incorporated, the advertisers, or marketing partners. Thank you for listening to Turn 5 Live. You can listen to Turn 5 Live every Tuesday night right here on the Performance Motorsports Network. Stay tuned for more great PMN programming.